y'all, welcome back to Babeinlibrary. It's your girl Lisa, and it is time to wrap up my April reading month. Now, in the month of April, I did read 12 books. Only one of those books were a DNF. The interesting thing about my ratings for the month is that I was either at a 3 or a 3.5 or a 5-star. There really wasn't a whole lot of in between. Now, I will say that there was an additional outlier outside of my DNF that I did push through, and I read the entire book. It started off like gangbusters, and then somehow along the way, it became like a 2.75. You can best believe at the end of this video, I'm probably going to rant about it. So if you would like to see me rant, please stay tuned. However, let's talk about some of the other books. Now, the other books that I read ranged in formatting. I will say I'm very proud of myself this month because I only listened to 4 audiobooks. Everything else was either done digital formats and or physical. So we'll talk about the first one, which is The Love Audit by Lucy Eden. And I am reading that with intention, trying to up my score on NetGalley. Since I've been on NetGalley, I've only reached about 61% or 62%. My goal is 70%. Knowing that NetGalley has an unrealistic expectation of you to reach 80%, I personally don't know if I'll ever reach that, but I think 70 is an attainable goal for me at the end of this year. So in order to do that, I wanted to read Lucy Eden's The Love Audit because this came out in December of 2025. And Lucy Eden is always one of my comfort reads. Like, I can read her and know that I'm going to laugh. I know that I'm going to feel cozy. I'm going to get a little bit of history or a little bit of a message, and it's going to suit me as a perfect cleanser. I'm going to tell you that this was the same, right? For me, I knew what I was going into. I knew what I was expecting. I did not have high expectations for this to be a 5-star, but I did feel like it was going to give me a little bit of tension because it was a workplace romance that had a rivals to lovers aspect, but more importantly, these rivals used to be childhood best friends and then they fell out. So I liked the mystery and the intrigue of seeing, like, why is our FMC Jasmine so adamant to be against Derek? And what did Derek miss out on when he left to go to college? Now, these two are childhood best friends because their parents were actually in business together. And so they grew up together. I believe Derek is about 5 years older than Jasmine. And they always kind of spent time with one another until their parents decided to dissolve their working relationship. Now, the rumor has it that Jasmine's parents were the ones that embezzled some money and kind of left everything estranged. And Derek's parents wind up getting a divorce because the financial constraints. Well, let's just say as you go through this, Derek doesn't know the whole truth and he doesn't know why Jasmine is feeling the way that she's feeling. And Jasmine definitely doesn't know the entire truth. And so through this, you get to see them work through their preconceived notions and how their parents' situation impacted their relationship. And now that they have to work together in this small town, they are forced to pretend that they are newlywed couples because Jasmine and Derek are on a scouting location of going to Florida and trying to figure out how they can flip and turn this town that their company owns into a profit. Now, the thing about this town, it is a Black only town. So very much giving Black Wall Street. The people there are thriving. They have businesses, they have schools, they have an entire working system that no one outside of their community knows about, nor has a piece or parcel in. Unfortunately, one of the founders of that particular town, their descendants sold like 1% to the company that Jasmine and Derek works for. And so they are infiltrating, trying to figure out how can we make this profitable. And the town people are like, something's fishy here. And so they have to pretend to be newlyweds. And through that, they kind of work through things that went wrong. They kind of start to feel like those feelings that were under the surface need to come out. So there is some caretaking. There is a very cute dog. And I just thought that this was the perfect palate cleanser. So that was my first read of the month. And I think it really set me off on a groove when it came to my reading. Now, after I read The Love Audit, I knew I needed to continue on with my momentum of getting things done and checked off the list. So I decided to pick up Capri 3.5. Now, Capri 3.5 is the final sibling of the Delgado series that is getting a book. Now, Capri and Quamir, I love them really, really bad. Like, I think that they are such a power couple. I love how they work well with one another. They have this friendship and has been a bond. Now, Capri 3.5 was giving 3.5 energy to me. Now, that's not to say that there's something wrong with this book. I think that this book had a lot of action. You got a lot of closure when it came to some of those storylines and plots. You got to see some swift revenge being given in this book, where I think we could have like dragged it out a little bit more. There was no issue with me in Capri and Quamir. I think that they were perfect. However, this is something that Jacquel has already talked about. And to me, I personally feel like there was a little bit of a disservice here to Capri. My girl deserves, a standalone book that is solely about her and her man. Like, we have done a lot with this couple and a lot with the people that they love and care about. However, I wanted to close out the book and the series with just them. And I know we have to set it up for other people to get books and the storyline and the momentum of the universe to continue on. However, me personally, I think we started to have a little bit of too much influence by people I didn't necessarily care about. Like, by the time I got to 3.5, I was over Amy and Capella. Like, I was like, let's wrap this up, Jacquel. These two here literally need to be on somebody's couch. And they need to figure out what they got going on before they continue to build a family, before they continue to drag people in their mess. And needless to say, she did show a little bit of more maturity and growth within them as a couple. Now, they're young. We can see that. Mistakes are being made left and right. And she really did start to wrap it up, but it wasn't quick enough for me. I was like, yes, I'm ready to be done with Amy and Capella because their foolishness is dragging the story down. And then lastly, for me, again, you're going to learn about a character as you go through this series named Corleone. Love Corleone as an individual. What we're doing with Corleone's storyline, I don't really need. I didn't really ask for. I don't really want to be on this ride. I personally like Corleone's two love interests independently. I like Corleone's love interest with Jeffy for sure. Like, I want to read more of that. And I think that may be my issue, is that we leaned too much into Skylar and we didn't get enough of Jeffy. And it felt very, very lopsided of a triangle there. It felt like not cohesion, but a favoritism towards one. And again, I know in my mind, we're building up to more things. We're building up Skylar's cousin and their love interest. We're building up to another plot point. However, I didn't need that in Capri's book. I needed Capri and Quamir to be about them and for us to ride into the sunset. That's just my personal thoughts. But overall, I'm going to tell you, read the series. Read the universe. Continue on. After that, I said, okay, well, it's time to put some things aside. Like, I've been knocking down NetGalley items. Let me go ahead and run that back with one of my favorites. Like, Tati Richardson dropped the latest release of hers, which is Struck Speechless. Now, I read this because I was going to Petal and Prose, and I did interview her, so if you want to see me talk to her, please go ahead and check out the latest video, which was the Petals and Prose vlog. Let me tell you, when I seen her at Petals and Prose, I had to tell you, you did your big one with Struck Speechless. This was my first 5-star of the month. It was everything I could have asked for. I loved this. Gave me the Love Audit, but better, because it too was workplace romance. It too was a option for a second chance. Now, this second chance wasn't friends to lovers, but it was more so the fact that they had a one-night stand. Our FMC Jackie misunderstood what was going on with Antonio when she overheard him talking to a woman on the phone, and she said, oh, this was just a hookup in Vegas. Like, I misunderstood. Let me go ahead and see my way out. And she said, baby, you don't have to worry about me ever again. They did not see each other for 10 years. Now 10 years is rolling back. And Jackie's company and Antonio's company are merging, and they now have to work together. Now, the interesting thing about this is Jackie is a big boss dog. Like, she is the top of the top when it comes to sports agents. And it just so happens that Antonio used to be a professional football player, and he is now a sports agent. And so she's like, don't come over here poaching my deals. Don't come over here starting no mess. I got this on my own. Unfortunately, Jackie runs into the wrong woman who kind of puts a spell on her. And now Jackie can't speak. One thing about Jackie, she run her mouth all day long. And she can't she can't let Antonio get a word in edgewise. Unfortunately, now she has to go and sign a contract and capture this big name in the boxing world who has sworn off sports agents, who's told Jackie many years back that he didn't want to work with her. Now she has to figure out a way to sign him to her roster, but unfortunately she can't do it because she doesn't have a voice. So she has to rely on Antonio. And so they start to travel to find this professional boxer, and Antonio just wants to see her win. The thing I love about Antonio, like, he really, really, really wants to be with Jackie. It's been 10 years, but it seemed like yesterday for him because he felt a special connection with her. Even though it was only one night stand, he's like, this could truly be my person. And I think she didn't give me a chance to explain myself, but I'm here and I'm back and I'm ready to tell her. Now, unfortunately, there are some additional puzzle pieces that go in between Jackie and Antonio that may raise the stakes a little bit more, or it may make everything crumble. It's just about how they communicate with one another. And I absolutely loved the way in which they were able to vibe and get a connection. Like I said, Jackie doesn't have a voice, so she has no choice but to sit and listen to Antonio. And this has bisexual representation. It definitely is giving you some heavy lean in to magical realism, and there's a lot of one bed tropes because, again, they're traveling, and it just so happened that the cosmic universe and or Jackie's secretary are forcing them together. So after reading Stuck Speechless, I'm like, okay, what am I feeling now? Like, I've had a rom-com, I've had something that was very cozy, I've had something that finished off the series that gave me that itch that I was looking to scratch with a Friends to Lovers. Let me find something that's a little bit unhinged and chaotic. And boy, did I hit the spot when it came to my next read, which was Cuffed by a Certified Maniac by Meek Mills. Now, it is apparent in the title that you've got a little bit of forced proximity and you've got an unhinged male main character, and Meek Mills didn't disappoint. Like, I was a little bit skeptical because I had read from Meek Mills before. I had read an erotica by her and it hit. But I had also read a full-length novel that had a similar premise, and I was like, oh, this is not what I wanted. So I came in with fairly low expectations of Meek Mills because I wasn't sure what I was going to get. Well, let me tell you. I got a teacher and a parent romance with an unhinged male main character that was very much giving insta-love and forced proximity. And I know that sounds like, you sure about that, Lisa? That don't sound like your vibe. It was absolutely my jam. In this, you have our FMC. Her name is Brianna, or I think they called her BB. Now, Brianna is a preschool, like, teacher's aide, and so she is working, and she has found this little girl that she adores, but she has to reprimand. And at the time, while she is telling her student that they can't do something, in walks her mom. Now, her mom is very much giving, I'm the baddest in the land, like, that's my child, don't nobody talk to my child. And I very much could understand if she was handling her business at the home, right? Like, if she was telling her child right from wrong, and we wouldn't really be in this situation. So when Brianna is like, hey, I'm just trying to tell your daughter you can't say mean things, you can't put your hands on people, this is what happened, the mother of the child wasn't trying to hear any of that. And so she was popping off at the mouth. until the father of her child, Jason, came in. Now, Jason is our male main character, and like the title says, he is unhinged. So he says, oh, what do you mean you reprimanded my daughter? And she's like, wait a minute. Let me just show you the videotape. Now, once Jason sees that, he said, all right, let me do this. I'm going to drop some money on her tuition because that's what I was going to do anyway. But I'm also going to pay you and your homegirl for messing up your time and the mother of my child acting stupid with you. Take yourself out to eat. But when he sees her reaction, he sees that she is very humble, that she's like, no, I don't need that. I just need to make sure that you understand these things can't happen. He's like, oh, she a good girl. She seemed like the one. And I'm starting to see that the mother of my child isn't doing right. So I'm going to replace her. And so he starts to take a liking to Brianna. And from there, the man just continues to spiral. He continues to become infatuated with Brianna. And it just so happens that he's like, oh, I'm going to make her mine. Now, this is where things get messy. This book has so many plot twists, that had so many reveals, and was like so layered. She did a fantastic job, she being Neek Mills, of being able to set the landscape, of making sure you realize, oh, this person is connected to this person, and this person has been plotting on this person for years. And I just found myself so enthralled by this book that I will be continuing the series. I have to know what happens next with Brianna's best friend and Jason's brother, and what happens after that, because kids become involved. If you like a little bit of family drama, if you like a little bit of suspense, you like a little bit of revenge, this is the one for you. So after that, I said, let me take a break. Let me step out of romance altogether. Like, I've done something dark, I've done something funny, I've done something cozy. I'm going to take a step out, and I'm going to look at some historical fiction, because I saw everybody talking about With Love from Harlem by Rashonda Tate, and how much it took them through there, how much they hated Adam Clayton Powell Jr., how much they learned about the Harlem Renaissance and outside of the normal names you get to hear, and how Hazel Scott was a unsung hero, one of our pillars in our community that doesn't get enough recognition. And I said, okay, well, let me take a look and see what the girls are talking about. And y'all, they did not lie. They did not disappoint. This was absolutely 5 stars. And it is so rich with historical figures. You get to learn more about, I would say, Billie Holiday, because just as much in my mind as this book is about Hazel Scott, you learn a lot about Billie Holiday, because these two were friends. And they were in a time in which both of them were Black women in their craft that had made a name for themselves and had received a modicum of notoriety, and yet their relationships to men, specifically how Hazel Scott was revered by her husband, and he wanted her for her name and her recognition, but he hated her. He hated everything that about her success, and yet he wanted to use that. And this just taught me about like how being a woman in your career, you could have somebody that wants to feed off of you and leech off of you and love you in the public but hate you in the background. And I just found that fascinating, because a lot of times you get to hear like women are so hungry for their success, and yet you don't see what they're going through behind closed doors. And even on the similar spectrum, but a little bit different, you have Billie Holiday. Like I said, in my opinion, this was just as much about her. And it talks about like how stardom can have you falling into pits where society wants to take you down. It may not necessarily be the people you know, it's the people that you don't know, and how they create a narrative about you, and how stars get wrapped up in addiction and how that changes their course. And then talking about how addiction doesn't get treated as an illness. I just thought that this book was so well done and very, very realistic in terms of like, you know, learning about historical figures that you may know. So you get to see a lot more of James Baldwin than I've seen in a lot of historical books. You get to see Langston Hughes. You get to learn about Bessie Smith. Like, it was so rich in culture, and I absolutely adored it. Now, after that, I said, okay, I have done a good job of like enriching my mind. However, that was a lot of big brain thinking. Let me dive back into something romance, but I don't just want romance, I want smut. I said, okay, I'm going to read Theirs by ML Bash. Baby, another banger. I mean, hit after hit after hit after hit. Like I said, there's coming to a point where all of this is going to come crashing down, but we're not there yet. Now, I read ML Bash's Theirs, and it is a polyamorous romance where you have our FMC, who is a cam girl. Like, and she loves being a cam girl. Like, this is not a profession that she is looking to walk away from. She has done it to reclaim some power for herself. She loves being able to determine how she interacts with her clients. And in her working real life, she is also working as a bartender, and at that bartender, she's still giving fantasy. She is still allowing the customers to live out their dreams when it comes to being with a woman like her. And so she is working, and she happens to be working with a gentleman that absolutely loves her, but she has never given them a chance, and that character's name is Stone. Now, Stone has been there the entire time. He makes no bones about how he feels about Giselle, and he's like, whenever you're ready, I'm ready. And it just so happens that she needs his assistance one day when a customer got a little too handsy, and he's like, hey, I'm gonna make sure that you're good, I'm gonna make sure you're protected. And she's like, well, let me treat you and we can go out to eat. Now that starts their romance, but before we get to meet her and Stone, we actually meet the third person that is a part of this unit. Now, the third person is Keanu. Now, Keanu is silent, right? He doesn't know Giselle in the context of her today. He actually used to go to high school with her, and he was friends with her brother. And so he has always had an interest in her, but now he finally feels like he's ready to act on it. And so he goes to the bar that exact same night, and he's like, hey, can you pour me a shot? Now, he gets the shot, but he's like, I don't want you to do what you do for other people. And she recognized that. So she sees an immediate attraction to him, and she's like, oh, you remember who I am? Let me give you a different type of fantasy. Now, he's like, hey, I actually want to be with you. Like, she's like, oh, I'm a sure thing, we're good to go, because she is very confident in her body. But he's like, no, I mean, I want to be your man. Now, she's like, one thing about Giselle, she's not interested. She don't want to be with Stone. She don't want to be with Keanu. She doesn't want to be locked down in any regard. She wants to have agency and control over herself. Now, you may be wondering, like, okay, well, how does this all go down? It is interesting because both of these men are stalking her. And not in a, like, I'm stalking you to take you out of there. No, I want to make sure that you're protected. I want to make sure you're safe. I want to make sure that you're cared for. These two men are the same coin, but in different perspective. Like, Stone is physically fit. He is physically a protector. He is physically ready to care for her and Keanu come down the line. But you have Keanu, who is the provider. He is the heir to his parents' security firm, and he is the CFO ready to be promoted to a CEO. And he also wants to provide and protect Stone and Keanu. And so, like, she's getting the best of both worlds. But what happens when she's like, okay, well, these two men want me. I don't want either one of them unless they want each other. And she goes about it the most Giselle way possible. And they're like, okay, well, if that's what you want, we want to be with you. And so let's give it a try. And giving it a try turns into, yeah, I like you and I like her. Let me have both. And let's create our own unit. And I appreciate how, like, they just worked so well together. Like, with one person had, the other person lacked at, and vice versa. Keanu, came from a 2-parent home. He was very stable. However, he was the only child, so he thrives and he craves, like, love and attention and just being someone to say, like, yes, you are mine. And Stone comes from a family, I want to say, of like 7. And so he's always had siblings. He's always had people to provide for and protect and be a part of, but he has never had the financial stability. He has never had the loving embrace of a family. And Keanu and his family is able to provide that for them. And Giselle, she has always had her and her brother, but she has never relied on a man. She has been very independent, and so she has never been able to let her guard down, and she does so with this man. Let me tell you, like, if you are looking for something where like the relationship just works, they have literally one of the best communication in a couple that I have seen in a very long time. I'm gonna tell you to pick this up. After that, I said, okay, well, in honor of 420, I want to read, I think it's like the 420 Bays series, and I was like, let's go ahead and pick up Sherelle Green. I am currently reading Smoke After Hours by Sherelle Green. I am thoroughly enjoying this one. This one is a story that has friends to lovers aspects. There is also a secret identity bodyguard romance, and it also has that forced proximity element. But I also want to say this has some romantic suspense. Let's get into what this is about. We have our female main character, Bentley. Bentley is I would call her a cannabis event planner. And so what she is doing is she is pitching this idea and piloting for her to be able to do a smoke hop. And it's very similar to a bar hop where you go from bar to bar trying different food and different drinks at each one of the venues. Instead of it being alcohol specific, it is cannabis friendly, and you're going to different cities. Now, one of the things that I love about Sherelle Green and what she's doing with this story is she is bringing all of her different series and worlds together into a universe. And I find it that it's so refreshing for me because I have sampled each one of her starters of the series. So I've read the Crown series where we get to meet Jade and her husband, who is the Crown. That is a mafia series in which they also partake in owning pleasure clubs. And so that is one of the places that they stop, which is the most recent place that I've just read. Because the scene that I left off with reminds me that it was originally in Make Me Confess. Now, I do have a reading blog of me reading this, as well as Grown Folks Confessions, with the first in the Naughty series, the Naughty season series. And I just left off of a scene where, like I said, is in this book, and it's at that pleasure club. So that is automatically getting me excited because it makes me want to go back and read more from the Naughty season. But I've got to stay focused because I don't know if I need this to turn into a Sherelle Green reading vlog, or I am just going to continue with vibes and see where I go next. But I just finished that scene, and so it reminded me I need to get back into that one. I also have read Married to a Madden, which the first one is Blessed by Malachi, and so we get to see one of the siblings in the Married to a Madden series. I have also, like I said, read and dibbled and dabbled in the Hood series, which this one has like a tattoo parlor. And so what I'm finding interesting is she's building and threading each one of her characters into this one. And it's just such a good time. This one has our female main character, Bentley. Bentley is I would call her a cannabis event planner. So she is pitching this idea to her boss and doing a pilot program where she is doing a smoke hop. And so they're going from city to city. And from there, she is also building this tension. And the tension is rising with her male best friend named Volley. Now, you may think, oh, it's friends to lovers. It's going to be sweet. It's not going to be what you think it is. Let me tell you this. This is a plot twist because this has hidden identity, specifically not knowing who Bentley is in reality to what she is portraying, because she is in witness protection and Volley is her bodyguard. So yes, this is a bodyguard romance. And they're going from spot to spot, and it has a romantic suspense element because someone is particularly out to get Bentley. And of course, our main male character, Volley, not only is it his duty, but he is in love with this woman, and he would take a bullet for her. And he's like, I can't allow anybody to think I'm going to get to experience you and let you go, or I'm going to let somebody take the one piece of joy that I have and I have actually dedicated my life to you, and us getting closer is going to be the thing that solidifies this. I am having such a good time just seeing how well they know each other, because again, their relationship is built off of a friendship. They have not been intimate one another because he doesn't want to cross that line, knowing that he's going to want more and he is supposed to defend her. And so in this journey, while they're going around, they're saying, okay, we are doing all of these things together, and I no longer just want to be your friend. Like, I realize how, short our time may be together and how much of a risky situation we are in. So let's, see where things go. And baby, the way in which we started off the book, this has a element that just like pulls you in and draws you in a little bit closer. And I am having doggone good. One of the other cool things that I wanted to make mention of about this book in particular is that our female main character, Bentley, she is Ethiopian. Our male main character is Kenyan, I want to say. And the thing that I love is that, like, we're getting moments of like where he is speaking to her in Swahili and she doesn't understand everything, but because she's been around him for long enough, she's picking up little phrases and she can repeat them back to her. So he is like confessing his love to her and she doesn't know, and I'm very, very sure of that. But she is also showing him like, I want to get to know you and I want to learn you and I want to be able to pour back into you by knowing your mother tongue. And I'm just like, y'all, fantastic. Almost all of her universe connect into one, and I love that about her writing. So much so that I decided to keep on with reading her, and I jumped back into her Naughty Season series with F-Boy Confessions. This was my biggest surprise. I absolutely loved this book. Like, it was like my standout for the month because this one is the third in the series, and this centers Midas and Audre. Now, I will tell you that you need to read this series in order in particular because Midas and Audre are forbidden. Like, they cannot be together because Audre is actually the mother of Midas's cousin's child. Yes, you heard me correctly. Midas's cousin had a baby with Audre, and now they're in a relationship, and this is their book. Now, had I not knew that this book was coming, when I first read the first in the series, which is Grown Folks Confession, I was like, oh, I don't care about Audre. I don't really want to see her. Definitely don't need a book from her. But I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know how much these two were going to touch me. So it does have like enemies to lovers. Like, Midas definitely does not like Audre, and Audre was like, I wouldn't touch you with a 10-foot pole. And so they have always kind of like been at each other's throats because of them being forced to be together, because Midas's cousin is like his best friend. Like, they are thick as thieves. And so it's interesting when they go to a spicy club and Midas goes there and he's like, okay, well, the theme of the night is polyamory. And he's like, okay, well, a shawty just called me up and was like, hey, I got somebody I want to have a good night with, and I want you to be invited. Not knowing that Audre was going to be there, and it's a masquerade event. So now Audre doesn't know that Midas is who's behind the mask, but Midas definitely sees her body, and he's like, oh, I know that body anywhere. And so he weighs in his mind, do I do it? Do I not do it? And he's like, screw it. It's all anonymous. Nobody will ever find out. And he goes for it. And then when they are enjoying each other's time, Audra's like, wait a minute, I know that voice. I know that tattoo. I know X, Y, and Z. And she runs up out of there. Now, it gets a little awkward the next day when it's Thanksgiving and they have to be at the table together. Now, Midas is like, I'm a grown man, and I don't want nothing to ever come back to my cousin. I'm going to tell him myself. Things hit the fan from there. And it just happens to spiral because Audre is a professional adult film star, but she also happens to want to break out of that stereotype, and she wants to get into film. And so she gets contracted to be the video vixen for Midas's new music video. And so they go to Tulum and they shoot this video, and from there they start to like get to know each other. They start to have a conversation. They start to reminisce on like their past, because they did go to high school with each other and they knew each other just within a little bit of a distance. And you get to see that Midas is actually going through a very difficult time in his life. Like, he is learning things about himself. He's learning things about his family. He is realizing how he fits into his Hood Legacy family series. And he is starting to come to terms with a potential medical concern from him. And he kind of tells it all to Audre, because no one else knows in his family. Like, this is the first time he is able to like really put his mind to it and really start to think about what this means for his life. And I love that Audre was able to like be his confidant, but also like support him and be able to say like, I think you're gonna do great. And she is totally his rock until they come back to the States, and now they have to deal with, okay, it was fun while we was on vacation. Like, we built up this thing, but it can't really last because I am the ex of your cousin and I've got these things going on. And Midas is like, what you mean? We go together in my mind. And so like, I was just so surprised by this. It was fantastic. Like I said, I loved being able to see them to be vulnerable with each other, especially given where they started at the beginning of this book. The arc for these two characters shows exponential growth in the character as well as the writing. Like I said, the Grown Folks Confession wasn't my favorite, but this is the absolute breakout star. Now, like I said, everything that goes up must come down. And after I read F-Boy Confessions, I did DNF Winter Times, chosen by a vampire, I want to say. This was something that I was like wanting to get into because I want to read from Winter Time. This is probably my third or fourth book attempt by her, and I just realized I just don't think that this author is for me. I DNF'd specifically because in this story you have a vampire that has lived for years and thousands of years at this point, or hundreds at least, and he was told that his mate is going to come to him in the future, and they kind of gave him a little bit of a rough estimate. Now, he is now currently the professor for the FMC, so their names are Tempo and Dare, and so Dare is the professor, and he starts to say like, oh, you're my mate and we're gonna be together. What really ticked me off about this, and which I couldn't see past, like I could not get this out of my mind, I was like, oh, it doesn't matter what she says after this. This incident really did throw me off on the book. Now, Dare finds out that Tempo is his mate because he meets a seer, like an oracle. And she says, oh, I see your future. And he's like, okay, well, cool. Tell me more about it. He goes to her house because she was working in a market. And so she's like, I can't do it out here. Like, you got to meet me later. So he goes to her house and she's like, hey, I got the information you want, but you're going to have to give me something for it. And when she said that, she meant like, you're going to have to drop them draws. And this man proceeds to do it. Now, I don't care. Like, he finds out about his mate literally while she and him are in the middle of the acts. And it blows my mind because, like, I know she is, like, hundreds of years in the future. Like, you're not meeting your fated mate until 200 years later. And I understand you got to have a life. You a vampire. You got a long time to live. However, you can't justify to me that this is a romance when I tell you about the person you're going to spend your life with while you're with another woman intimately. It's no seeing past that. So I quickly DNF'd that. Now, after that, I said, okay, well, maybe I shot too high. Maybe I girl bossed too hard in the sun. And I said, let me go into something lighter. Now, when I say something lighter, I literally mean YA. I decided to pick up Tia Williams, Audre, and Bash Are Just Friends. One, because I needed a slam dunk. Like, I needed something I knew I was going to love. And Tia Williams was exactly that. Now, I had been putting this off for a while. And I said, oh, the audiobook came in from my local library. Let me pick it up. Fantastic. Absolutely loved listening to this in audio because there are some epistolary pieces where they are texting each other, and I love being able to hear like the audio messages, or them being able to see, like, send a message and you hear that, like, you know, that sound effect when you're texting back and forth in the pings. I really enjoyed this because I got a chance to see Eva and Shane from 7 Days in June. Eva is Audre's mother, and we see Eva in a completely different light. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, it wasn't the best light for your girl. Yes, we enjoy Eva and love Shane down bad. Shane was he was such a force and so enjoyable in the story. But Eva, you're looking at her like, girl, the audacity of you to come in here on your high horse and treat Audre the way that you've been treating her, when Audre has been a stellar child. Like, she has given you no problems. And don't you recall, we literally read how you and Shane was ripping and running and doing everything under the sun in your book, and you're coming to tell me that Audre can't have a friend like Bash, and she shouldn't be doing this and she shouldn't be doing that? Girl, if you don't get out of my face. Like, that's the energy that it was giving. And it just shows the, like, true talent in Tia's pen, that she not only gave you a characters that you knew before, but being able to see them more mature, being able to see them in a different space as parents, and being able to see them as they're navigating these major changes in life. Because one of the things about this is Audre is very much feeling displaced. Now, Shane and Eva are getting ready to get married. They're making renovations in their home, and they have welcomed a child. And that child to Audre is known as the Goblin. So Audre is like, I'm just about to get into, like, the crux of my senior year. I am trying to apply for colleges, and y'all are pushing me out the door well before it's time. And she realizes, like, she's been trying to be this perfect model student, and she hasn't lived life. Like, her best friend is like, oh, let me give you a checklist of all the things that you need to do this summer, because Audre is trying to write a book and she is experiencing some writer's block. Like, she can't fully dive in and give the therapy the best way that she can, or she can't necessarily write in a book because she doesn't feel like she has the experience. So she has this entire summer checklist, and her best friend is like, hey, you know that new guy Bash, he's new in town, everybody is talking about him, he seems like a really good person to check off some of these items on your list. And so Audre works up the courage to be able to say, hey Bash, I don't know about you, but I've heard about you, and I'm going to ask you to be my coordinator of fun. Now, Bash is like, all right, I gave myself the summer of yeses, and I'm planning on doing it the same with you. And through this, you get to see a lot of adventures. You get to see them do, like, crazy stunts and crazy dares. You get to see them explore New York City together. They get to find out a lot more about themselves, and you get to learn a lot more about Bash and some of the things that he's going through, because one of the things about Bash is that he's very misunderstood. He just came to New York, and he is forced to live with his mother, who has no relationship to. Like, his parents will be on my family's I'd like to fight list, because his mother has left him, and pretty much when he was, like, really young, and so he doesn't have any relationship with him, but his father has kicked him out the home, and now he has to live with this mother, and this mother basically doesn't necessarily care for him enough. Like, she is doing the very bare minimum, and he's like, I'm just here so I can get to my next destination in life, but along the way I'm going to have fun, and I'm going to have fun with this really awesome, really smart, really pretty girl, and I'm going to see where it goes. But he has reservations about how far he should let things go with Audre, because in his mind, everything that he touches, everybody he gets involved with, it kind of crumbles for him. And he's like, I don't want to tarnish this beautiful, spirited girl. And she's like, I'm just here to have fun. So if you all had ever thought about, like, is there ever a time where I'm going to enjoy YA again? This is the book to do it, because it is so well done. all the way up from the beginning all the way up to the end. And it's such an interesting point to be an adult reading a YA book, but reading it from a person that you know and trust, and with characters that you already know and love. So highly recommend this one. I did figure I needed to finish out this duology by Tatum James, and so I decided to finish with Married to a Rich Gangster 2. I had read this, I want to say last year, and I was like, oh, this was such a stunning book. Like, I really, really enjoyed book 1. I said, well, the way that ended, it was fine, but there's an entire second book. Let me see what it's talking about. Now, me personally, I felt like this was like the world's longest extended epilogue. Everything that Tatum did with this book could have been paired with the first one. Like, I just felt like we drew it on for what purpose? While it did have some really good points in terms of Kenya and Rowan, I just felt like we could have put this with book 1 and just made it a little bit longer, because both of them are very, very short. Like, it could have been a full-length novel, and we didn't need to do that, cliffhanger to move into this one. Now, again, if you enjoyed that story, I would tell you to go directly into this one to read it as a seamless transition. Rowan and Kenya, at the end of that book, they are separated, and Kenya is going through some changes alone. Like I said, I don't want to spoil it too much, but Rowan, who has become a person that she depended on, a person that she felt like she could trust, he no longer wanted to see her, and he thought he was doing the right thing to protect her, when really he was just pushing her away. Now it's come to the point where he's like, I want you back in my life, and I also have a secret, and I think it's time for me to tell you and for me to be in your life. And so Kenya is very much at a point where she's like, I don't know if I need to be with you. I've got a lot of things going. I'm trying to settle some things in court. I have somebody else that has been interested in me. You gave them too much time, and now I can see that they possibly could be a man that I need to be with. And I'm just learning how to do things on my own, and I don't want to fall back into a unhealthy pattern of being up under you. And so, like I said, it was a good book. It just didn't do enough for me for this to be a standalone. But I will tell you, if you're reading book 1, which was very good, very entertaining, make sure you jump directly into book 2. Don't waste any hesitation between the two. The last and final book that I am going to try my best not to rant about. I'm not going to get into this long spiel about how I feel, but I decided to pick up the second in this, I don't remember what the series is called, but it is a hood country love story or something like that. This is Breaking Barriers to Your Heart. Name of the title lets me know, okay, these are guarded individuals. Now, we get to see them in the first book, which is 8 Seconds to Love, and I was so excited for this story. Our female main character, Shayna, is the best friend to our FMC in book 1, and Red is best friends and with our MMC in the first book. So we already got these two being like physically attractive with one another, already started to work on their love story. So in my mind, I was like, oh, okay, it's a slam dunk. Like, we already see that they have interest and chemistry and that things are going to work out right. It's going to be just backstory. And which, again, a lot of it was. Red and Shayna started off like gangbusters. Like, it was such a, if they're already in love, everything is already good. What are we reading it for? And I'm like, okay, well, there's got to be a shoe that drops. And it dropped swiftly because Red is a bull steer, right? Like, so this is a cowboy romance. Shayna is a correctional officer. Now, I love some things about this. The fact that, like, it felt very modern. It felt very much of the time because Shayna is a correctional officer, but she is on furlough. She is not getting any money. She is struggling because the government has shut down. And so she's like, okay, well, what do I need to do? Now, she finds out that she has a talent and a knack for riding horses, and she could potentially go into barrel racing. And so Red is like, okay, you're my woman. I really want you to succeed. You don't want to take money from me outright. even though I'm willing to give it. Let me get you involved into the rodeo where you can make a lot of money and we can spend more time together. Now, Shayna starts to develop a knack for this. And so they're spending time to each other. Everything is working out until, and let me take a step back and say, like, they are really trying to work towards, like, being in an actual relationship. Now, Shayna has always had reservations. She had been in a relationship before and she was mistreated. And she said she vowed to never be vulnerable again. And so she's finally starting to let her guard down with Red until Red gets a phone call that changes everything. Now, I'm not going to tell you what that phone call entails. Just know that it happens to do with the woman of his past. And this woman is someone that he could have seen himself have a future with. And so he starts to realize, like, I don't know where this is going to place me. She just laid some heavy information on me. And this is where things start to piss me off, because Red very much sounded like he said all of the right things. His thought process is that he wants to be with this woman, and he this is the first woman, Shayna being the first woman he has ever loved and he saw a relationship with. Like, Red has had a tumultuous upbringing. When I say tumultuous, I mean we dig deep, and it is very hard to read and see and know the things that he's experienced. So just like Shayna has her reservation, Red definitely has a lot of things with trust issues and being able to be independent, and he's got a lot of issues that he has to work through and break down some barriers too. The issue that I have is that Red and what happens with this phone call and how he starts to move thereafter. And anytime that Shayna gets skittish, now Shayna is very much ready to run away at the drop of a hat. She has a temper and a fuse that can light like a match, and Red as well. So, like, they are very both spirited, fiery people, and so that type of chemistry can be good when it's good, and when it is not good, it can be volatile, and not to the point where, like, they would ever physically harm each other, but emotionally there is some damage that can be done between the two of them. And while I fault Shayna for some areas, because she does need to learn how to communicate with this man, she does need to have boundaries with her father, which we'll get to in a minute. What really ticked me off was Red, and how Red was like, I love you, I love you, I love you, I want to be able to be there for you. His actions didn't always necessarily speak that way. The way in which he started to use and kind of manipulate the woman when it suited him. Like, when Shayna was having the outs with him and she decided to, like, not answer a phone call, he would come back to the other woman's name, but he would go back to her and he would use her, knowing that she really still had feelings for him, and she would be there, and not on a malicious or grimy thing. That's not at all, like, it's not the other woman's fault. She was really the only one that could keep Red in check to say, hey, you actually with Shayna, you want to be with her, you in a relationship, like, we shouldn't be doing this. But he would say, oh, I just need somebody to comfort me, and he would run to her. And every time, he damn near be willing to, like, sleep with her, until the woman was like, yeah, no, we can't do this. And he was like, oh, he kisses her. He goes to the next step. And I'm like, bro, you and your actions and the way that you handle any slightly inconvenience is troublesome to me. And I definitely don't want you to be with Shayna if this is how you're going to do every time. And every time he would fall back with this woman. And that was one of the first things that pissed me off, because there is no way, very similar to what I said about Chosen by a Vampire. I understand. Men are men. Very simple creatures sometimes. What do you mean I'm your soulmate? Like, I am the person that is going to be your everything, and yet when rubber hits the road, you likely to fall for any skirt that walks past you. That's not the type of love that I want. And I just was so frustrated in reading this in the book. Like I said, there's a lot of things that I want to say, but a lot of them will be spoilers. I just hate that Red, the way in which he kind of mishandled a lot of situations. And it wasn't until Shayna asked about him, because one thing about it is Shayna know her man. So she said, Red, now you telling me all of this, but you leaving a lot of stuff out. And so she would have to ask him, and then he'd be like, oh, well, this is what happened. No, baby, tell the whole truth. Don't leave nothing behind. Like, oh, I kissed her. You did more to kiss her, sir. You was on your way. You was about to do some things that you don't do for anybody. You barely started to do these type of activities with Shayna, and you was about to give it up to the other lady. Like, did we forget? So that was really one of the biggest things. And like I said, I want to get onto my soapbox and rant, but I don't want to spoil it for you. The second thing that pisses me off is, I think it's all centered around male accountability with this. But the fact that Shayna, and yes, I understand, Shayna's father, shady, terrible, despicable human being. Yes, he may have been a good father to her, but being a good father to your child and being a terrible human being that just do some despicable things, I can't, the logic is warring in my mind. And so like Shayna was like, oh yeah, like my dad did this, and yes, you always gonna ride for your dad. Like, that's your dad, he treated you well, you love him. But wrong is wrong, and you need to be able to let your dad rehab himself and be convicted, and like, you not give him no pass. I don't really know what to do in that situation, because it is very, very difficult. Yes, this person is your father. You saw this man in the light for so long, and he was your idol. And yet, when you learn about all the things that he been doing, you just like, oh. Yes, he apologized to you, and how those things blew back on you, but he did not apologize to that woman or her children. And for that, you need to be getting into his butt. Like, you had a conversation with your dad, and never did you reprimand him. At this point now, I got to be the adult. Now I got to tell you, hey, you need to do this. Be it, take it on the chin. You need to go apologize to these people and make amends, and you need to figure out how to give back to the community, because right now you're pissing me off and disgusting me. And now that's my legacy. Now I have to live with that, knowing that what you did. And like, nowhere in this situation did she hold her daddy accountable. And I said, okay, now I see why we clinging on to Red and his poor behaviors at this point. It just so much about this and the ways that these men had me messed up in this book. I was just like, I was rooting for you. Like, I just knew going into this book, and so far, like, probably up until the 25%, 35%, like, I was like, oh, this is gonna be a 5-star. Baby, it turned into a 2.75, and I ain't never looked back. I don't know what I'm gonna do, because I only have one more book left in the series, and yet I don't know who those characters are. And after this, I don't know if I want to know who those characters are. I might have to just pick up something else by Monica, because I do like her writing. I do like her plots and premise. It's just that this book right here really didn't do it for me. That being said, I am going to ask you all to do me a favor. Leave me some type of summertime emoji. This again is based in summer. You've got surfboards, you've got flower petals. Leave me something summery for Audre and Basher Just Friends. Tell me what you read and enjoyed in the month of April, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.